choose gold first, always choose gold. It's best if you don't diversify your investments. Why? Because you simply don't have enough money. It's that simple. Let me tell you some stories and give you some examples in different ways. When you have very little money, don't try to put your eggs in different baskets like others do, because you only have half an egg. Or maybe you only have an eggshell. What the hell are you diversifying your investments for? Others have hundreds of millions of dollars to work with. With that kind of capital, they can afford to diversify. To put it bluntly, even the money you get from swiping your credit card at the bank, just 200,000 RMB, what kind of diversification are you talking about, right? There's really no need for you to diversify your investments. So I've always said that gold is like Bitcoin, and if you want a comparison, silver is like Ethereum. Haven't I said this before? And I have always told you that historically speaking, gold always moves first and then silver follows. In recorded history, long before the gold standard was established, from the year 1000 all the way to 1783, the gold to silver price ratio was typically between 110 and 115. The gold-silver ratio was 15 pieces of silver equal to 1 piece of gold. 1783 was a turning point. In 1783, humanity experienced its first systematic financial crisis. After the European financial crisis in 1783, central banks in various countries returned to the gold standard, making gold suddenly scarce. So after 1783, the gold-silver ratio became 1 gram of gold equal to 35 grams of silver. After World War II, under the Bretton Woods system, gold was set at $35 per ounce, which means the price of silver should have been $1 per ounce. These are the guiding principles you should keep in mind. I have been emphasizing to you how they disconnect you from the network. How to draw the lines, how did they wipe out the long positions in gold? What do you learn? What do you learn? The lesson learned in blood is never use leverage. Did you happen to hear that? You should never go long using the bank's money. If you don't take action, you will be totally and utterly decimated. Are you not listening? Are you really not listening? Did you understand the basic data I just talked about? Let me ask you, in 1783, to put it another way, before and after the emergence of modern finance in the year 1783, exactly what should the gold to silver ratio be? 1 to 15, remember that, 1 to 15. And after 1783, up until before World War II, what was it, 1 to 35, remember that. After World War II, under the Bretton Woods system, the price of gold was $35. So what was the price of silver at that time? $1 per ounce, remember, that's how the 1 to 35 ratio came about. What was gold's price before World War II? $20 per ounce, and it stayed at that level for a long time, several years, and it kept rising. How much gold was in $1? How much gold was in $1? In $1, there was gold in the bill, you know. In 1783, right after the American Revolutionary War, and not long after the founding of the United States, when the US started issuing the dollar, each dollar contained 1.505 grams of gold. In other words, there was 1.5 grams of real gold in each dollar. That's why US coins are still yellow today. That's because they contained gold, not copper. Understand? There were 1.5 grams of gold inside. It was contained within, before World War II. After World War II, they really did become copper, but to commemorate this, they're still yellow. It's called the buck dollar, not $1, but buck. Have you ever wondered why there is a deer head printed on it? Deer, deer head, buck. How much gold was actually in the Canadian dollar? Canada and the United States have always had a highly integrated economy. In fact, even before World War II, they were already deeply and inextricably linked, so each Canadian dollar contained exactly 1.50 grams of gold. Exactly 1.5 grams of gold, so the Canadian dollar was referred to as the loonie. There is a common loon bird printed on it, and it is also yellow. Its size, weight, and purity were almost identical to the US dollar. It's just the difference between 99 and 100. 1.5 grams for the Canadian dollar, and the US dollar is 1.505 grams. Did you hear that? These are basic concepts. Then you'll know why the US dollar depreciated. Why was it accepted even when made of copper and paper? Because after World War II, the United States emerged as the sole superpower, a dominance paid for with 20 million lives. What is the state of the post-war order and balance now? Now, there is no order or balance anymore. The order and balance are gone. So, the real reason for the rise of gold and the resurgence of gold prices now is not because everyone is speculating on gold. Stop always talking about speculating on gold. That's just bullshit, you understand? The real fundamental reason is the depreciation of the US dollar. The fundamental reason for the depreciation of the US dollar is the decline of America's national strength. Why has America's national strength faded? Why has America's power declined? Why has it declined? You might say, Lao Wang, I don't accept that, but it doesn't matter if you don't accept it because the US no longer has its allies. Look at how countries like the UK and Canada are drifting further and further away from the US. This is a trend. I'm neither a Trump supporter nor a Trump critic. We're just talking about objective facts. America's national strength, indeed, the US domestic economy is truly prosperous, but that's exactly how the US should be. After World War II, America was even more prosperous than it is today. Because back then, the US was the engine of the world. Now, the US can only serve as the engine of the Americas now. Of course, that's still impressive. It's still much stronger than Canada. But the US dollar is no longer as dominant as it once was. Whenever money is printed, gold prices will rise. What's more, now there's a powerful adversary, an opponent strong enough to challenge the US in terms of national strength, and that's China. The Chinese government is stockpiling large amounts of gold. That's why the US is seeing a rise in gold prices. And as for the increase in gold prices, let me tell you again, gold prices are going up. Actually, what I'm saying today is something I've repeated many times. Prices never just go up in a straight line. The rise in gold prices is always wave-like, never linear. After a major upward trend is established, every drop or sharp decline is just an opportunity to get on board. Do you understand? Because you haven't used leverage and you haven't gone all in, you can naturally add a bit more each time. So when gold surges sharply, rising like a wall, that's actually when you can start selling some. Why? Especially when silver is shooting up like a wall. Why is it that you can sell some gold then? Because it means that COMEX can't hold out anymore. To put it simply, the established old money and powerful financial families in London and New York just can't hold out anymore. So why exactly do they have to hold out? It is because they are the primary market makers. You get it? There are specific market makers for gold prices, and for silver prices too. So when they eventually have nothing left to deliver to the buyers, if you keep pushing them, you'll force them into bankruptcy. As you know, COMEX. Do you guys know COMEX? This institution is commonly called the Commodity Exchange Incorporated, and it's the New York Mercantile Exchange in the US. It's the world's largest center for trading precious metals and commodity options and futures. It's a center for spot and futures trading. It's located in New York, but it belongs to the Chicago Mercantile Exchange Group. That's COMEX. So when we often mention the COMEX gold price or the international gold price, like how many US dollars per ounce, we're talking about COMEX. In our minds, COMEX is so sacred, just like the Shanghai Stock Exchange or the Shenzhen Stock Exchange, as if it's a state-owned institution. But it's not. No, no, no. This is America, not China. It's a private institution. It's a private company. Standing directly behind this entity are various individuals and families. They are established, multi-generational old money families from the East Coast and from London. Consequently, it is inherently and fundamentally at odds with these emerging forces in the market. A 20% or 30% plunge in silver today is really nothing. I'm telling you, it's really nothing. Watch my lips, it's nothing. Some people even say it's the biggest in history, but you clearly haven't looked at history. A 20%, 30%, or even 50% drop in silver is what you call historic? The history of silver is an 80% drop. You might say, Lao Wang, are you talking about the time of Marco Polo? Fuck off. I'm talking about modern times. I'm talking about after I was already born. Silver has dropped from the level of 100 down to 80. No, down to 20, and from 50 down to $10. Why? It's exactly the same situation as today. All the financial experts today, as long as they don't mention this point, they don't truly understand gold and silver. Why does silver lead the decline? Because unlike gold, silver is an important industrial raw material. There is a huge demand for physical silver, so COMEX has been stockpiling physical silver for years, really for actual physical delivery. And in the last silver bull market that occurred just this past month, it has already significantly surpassed the COMEX inventory. The total amount of their physical inventory is held in silver bars. Let me ask you, if you were the boss of the exchange, say you have, for example, 5,000 tons, right? With that much physical silver, you wouldn't feel insecure. Why? Because in a year, only about 4,800 or 4,500 tons would be withdrawn from you, so you have a clear idea of your situation. It's always been like this. But suddenly, there's a surge in financial demand. This never happened before because it was an industrial product. Previously, it was just an industrial product, and financial demand was almost negligible. Suddenly, financial demand has taken the dominant position, and it's 10 or even 100 times greater than the demand for the commodity itself. At this point, the 5,000 tons you have on hand, let's use silver as an example. It's not actually 5,000 tons, but just for illustration, when you have 5,000 tons of silver, suddenly there are buy orders for 500,000 tons. What would you do? Tell me, would you deliver? Are you even able to deliver? Can you afford to deliver? What would you use to deliver? So they have to lure you in with leverage and then force you into liquidation. And if they can't force you into liquidation, if they can't, they'll just change the rules. Only selling is allowed, no buying. You might say, come on, Uncle Wang, you're just telling stories. The New York Mercantile Exchange, the world's largest precious metals market, how could a commodity exchange possibly say that from today on, only selling is allowed and buying is not? So when I say gold could rise to 40,000 or even 50,000, there are certain conditions. If the US can't get rid of its treasury bonds, and if I were the president, I wouldn't even need digital currency to offload that debt. Since most gold is in the US, I'd just push up the price of gold to 40 or 50,000. Because the US has 8,000 tons of gold reserves, I could instantly get rid of my US debt. That's how I'd play it, and there's nothing anyone else could do about it. Would you sell? If you sell, I'll buy. If you sell, I'll take it because you don't have any gold. How are you going to sell it? If it goes up to 40,000, that's fine, but I'm not the president of the US, so don't mess around with me. If that is the case, how high could it go? It would be like the gold price before World War II relative to US GDP. Following a theoretical deduction, if there had never been the Bretton Woods system and gold stayed in that state of chaos, it should have risen to that level. According to my calculations, that level is 10,836, 10,836, and there is data to support it.